When Sasuke and Sakura agreed to undertake the S-Rank mission to travel over 30 days to the country of Redaku in search of the cure for Naruto's deadly chakra illness, neither of them expected the wild ride that they would be placed on. It was a mission filled with betrayal, danger, insecurities, all of these arising out of Sasuke and battles with Edo Tensei. The mission nearly caused Sasuke to relive his worst memory ever, where he stumbled across the dead bodies of his parents, but in this case during the mission, Sasuke found the half-dead body of his wife Sakura, buried beneath stories of debris. However, despite all the ups and downs, the married couple has now recaptured the ever-elusive polar particle that was left behind by the Sage of Six Paths, which will be critical in giving Naruto the cure that he needs in order to recover from his deadly chakra illness that is slowly killing Naruto. After Sasuke stumbled across the man who once betrayed him, a shinobi that Sasuke once considered to be a friend who was named Gigi, Sasuke unleashes what is described by Gigi as being an earth-shattering volume of chakra before Sasuke activates his Sharingan with the threat of placing Gigi under a genjutsu that will be so powerful that Gigi won't wake up from it until Gigi reaches his next life. It's in the moments after this that Gigi reveals that he went along with the plan to take over Redaku because of the promise that he would be able to revive his dead wife with Edo Tensei, and hearing Gigi question Sasuke about how far Sasuke would go if he were in Gigi's shoes made Sasuke himself realize that if he was pushed to use Edo Tensei to revive Itachi, and if anything happened to his wife Sakura, that Sasuke himself could be in Gigi's shoes as well. The scene I'm going to share with you guys starts just after Sasuke hears the very emotional tale of Gigi, who continues to tell Sasuke his story with tears falling from his eyes. As Sasuke hears the name of Gigi's lover, he looks at the message that was sent by Kakashi and realizes that the very same woman named Margot, who Kakashi referred to in the very same note, happened to be the same woman that Gigi believed to be dead. The revelation sets up the extremely heartbreaking finale of the Sasuke Retsuden novel, where Sasuke's S-Rank mission comes to a close. But I want you guys to be forewarned before I start reading the text. Even the strongest of ninja is going to need tissues handy by the time all of this is over, especially when you realize the classic scenes from Naruto that were recreated in this moment. So what I'll do for you guys now is go over the scene in question and then come back to you guys my thoughts, and it's here I'm going to begin quoting. Sasuke reacted, lifting his face. Margot, was that the name of Gigi's lover? The letter that he received stuck out in his pocket. Sasuke opened the creases in the letter, looking over the text with his eyes. Gigi, you were here for over a year. How do you know for certain that Margot died? Her death certificate came addressed to me. Some miserable epidemic had killed her. It was signed by the Prime Minister himself. Then that also means that the Prime Minister was an accomplice. Gigi, I'm sorry. Sasuke showed Kakashi's letter to Gigi. Gigi, this letter was written by a friend of mine. The new king of Nanar defeated the Prime Minister's dictatorship, handing over his custody to the queen in the capital. There was in detail about a woman named Margot who had helped accompany the new king. She was a maid in the royal palace, making her a very reliable person for my friend. She knew a lot about the interior situation. What are you talking about? Gigi, this is information from a trusted source. Gigi's eyes read over the note, and his eyes began to tremble with newfound uncertainty. Suddenly, a lump started to grow in Gigi's throat, his eyes clinging to each letter that was written as tears began to fall over his cheeks. He wondered if Margot wasn't actually dead and he was used at his will. How had he not realized that he was being used by Zanzaro, that he was being manipulated? He was a shinobi. He should have known better. Gigi's tears grew larger as they clung to his face before falling onto his tears. You could hear his tears as they hit the ground, and then there was a growling noise. Gigi raised his face. A carnivorous beast crept in behind Sakura and spotted him. He lowered his body, then violently kicked the ground, sending him into the air. Sensei! Gigi started to weave hand signs in front of his body. The rat sign, the ox sign, the monkey sign, the tiger, the boar, the dragon. It was the signs of the reanimation jutsu. By the time that Gigi finished weaving the signs, Sakura had already reacted by sending her fist up into the beast's jaw. But the skin on the tips of his nose began to peel, rising into the air. The skin crumbled into dust and continued to rise into the sky despite the breeze. Gigi signed the jutsu's release. The beasts under his control were no longer trapped by the Edo Tensei. The dragons conquered under the heap of prisoners. The hard-skulled beast with the ankles pulverized. The titan beast that was sinking in the lake. All of their souls cramped back into their bodies after a long rest when they were finally released. Released from a greedy domination by Gigi and Zanzaro to return to their endless sleep. And of course, there was Minnow too. Minnow sounded his throat to say goodbye. goodbye, pressing and rubbing his head against Sasuke's stomach, tail swaying from side to side. Go home, Minnow. It's okay, you did well. Sasuke was scratching at Minnow's chin when he squinted with happiness and gave one final, tired exhale. He tried to cling to Sasuke as he grew increasingly transparent. However, as hard as he tried, he could never hold on to Sasuke. Minnow, good night. Rest easy, my friend. His limbs, his torso, it all became dust, rising to a place with no conflict, to a place where he couldn't suffer anymore, where he couldn't be used against his will. As all the dark gray dust began to rise, the white snow started to fall down around them. The snowflake fell onto Sasuke's cheek as he looked up in astonishment at the colors that crossed the air. The snowflake ice crystals reflected the light into the rainbows as they fell into the moonlight. However, the carnivorous beast that Sakura had hit was violently resisting its death. It didn't want to go back to the Pure Land. Half of his body had already disappeared, but the fire in his eyes proved that he hadn't given up yet. Stretching out his long tail and forcing his body to move, the beast kicked up at the ground and landed on top of Gigi. Was it for revenge for using the jutsu? Was it simply an instinct of a predator? Gigi had been caught completely off guard from just releasing the Edo Tensei. His reaction was completely delayed. He hadn't expected this. Fresh blood began to erupt from his body. The beast's curved claw completely gouged out Gigi's chest, the tip of his nail ending deep within his throat. Gigi! The carnivorous beast had achieved its revenge and completely turned back into dust and dissolved into the air, leaving fresh built blood oozing everywhere. Hold on! Sakura rushed over to cut off her chakra thread. Sasuke supported Gigi's fallen body from behind as Sakura instructed him. Hold on to him firmly! Close the wound! Hold on to it firmly! Sakura's hand had been trying to address the wound that was stopped by Gigi's hand, engulfed in blood. Sensei, don't treat me. No, stop that! Sakura had sent chakra through Gigi's hand despite his requests. You want to see Margot, don't you? How are you gonna do that if you're dead? This is all you can do for me. His field of vision grew darker. At least, I won't have other guys to compete with anymore. Blood clogged up in Gigi's throat. He didn't even have the strength to cough it up. It felt like he was drowning underwater. Gigi no longer resisted his body becoming heavier and heavier. Finally, he closed his eyes. To think that he was gonna die here, alone, after everything that he went through. He wanted to laugh somehow, but he couldn't. When he found out that Margot had died, he felt enough regret that he wanted to die too. Having left Margot alone, being unable to be together with her in her last moments. He had thought Margot had died because he hadn't been around to protect her. But this was just his hubris. This was just his arrogance. Somewhere off in the distance, he could hear Sasuke and Sakura still calling out to him. That couple, he couldn't help but feel envious of them. If he had had anywhere close to their level of strength, he wouldn't have succumbed to this. He wouldn't have crossed these lines. What's real is not what can be visible. It was too late for his regrets now. At the bottom of the field of his vision was entirely dark now. And then he heard Margot call out to him. End quote. So what I love about this scene right here is that a couple of big scenes from Naruto were remade here. The moment where Minnow and Sasuke say their goodbye was pretty much a moment paying homage to Edo Tensei Itachi and Sasuke during the war arc, where Itachi told Sasuke that he would always love him. Just as Itachi placed his forehead against Sasuke as he said his final goodbye, Minnow was rubbing his head affectionately against Sasuke's stomach before he passed over into the afterlife. But even then, Minnow was still clinging on to Sasuke, wanting to stay close to him as long as possible, just as Itachi did before he finally faded away. The second moment that got redone was when Gigi, just when he thought it was safe that Sakura had beaten the Edo Tensei, Gigi had released everything. His internal monologue personally reminded me of Jiraiya's last moments as he fell to the bottom of the ocean, because in this scene you hear Gigi talk about the fact that he feels as if he's sinking into the bottom of an ocean as well. While he's filled with regret and a sense of failure, while ending the moment on a brief moment of optimism when he begins to think about the loved one they left behind. Just as Jiraiya once thought of Naruto, Gigi is thinking of Margot in the same situation. For me, this is why I love the character Gigi so much, because we see a full range of emotions out of the character that in hindsight make you realize just how far someone will go when they're desperate and acting out of love. And most importantly, what I love about Gigi's character is the fact that he's actually very well written. Even though he's not the main character in the story, he brings out enormous emotions out of the two main characters of the novel, Sasuke and Sakura, and his actions and his subtle movements and subtle words trigger huge plot points that happen with these characters. Gigi is a direct catalyst for a lot of the internal conflict that Sasuke feels in this novel, so that's a very well written character. One of the other themes that this novel has is addressing the relationship between two ninja who are married as husband and wife. How does the relationship interfere with the mission? What happens if a lover of a shinobi dies while they are on a mission? And how does it impair the surviving spouse's judgment? Throughout this novel, we see Sasuke battle his own fears and insecurities, his longing to be with his family, his fear of losing Naruto because Sasuke might fail his mission to find a cure, and nearly losing Sakura. And then it's after that we see Sasuke unleash his rage on an army of Edo Tensei, and then briefly unleashes his full bloodlust on Gigi as he threatens to kill him. On the flip side of all of that, we also see how Sakura began to work her way into Gigi's heart through their subtle interactions, reminding him of his own wife in some ways. It would explain the playful manner in which Gigi behaved around Sakura at times, as well as his own hesitation to kill her in a brutal fashion when he had the chance on a couple of occasions. When Sakura was at death's door, Gigi couldn't stomach being around her, as her thoughts turned to fear of never seeing her daughter Sarada ever again. In Gigi, we see how the thought of losing his wife pushed a good man with good intentions, to crossing the moral lines that made him an irredeemable character. In fact, when you look at him, Gigi is a tragic character. When he realizes that his wife is still alive, it absolutely shatters his heart because he knows he's been too tainted by things that he's done that his wife, if she saw him, would never recognize him. He's no longer the proud former shinobi who sought to live a life of peace, away from the duties of being a Saiyan shinobi. Instead, he became nothing more than a hired mercenary, taking enjoyment in the brutal deaths of the inmates because Gigi was struggling with the hurt that existed in his own body as he thought about the loss of his wife, and he blamed himself for her death. Gigi believed that he lost someone that he'd never be able to replace, or at the time he thought that he had lost her. Nothing else mattered to Gigi anymore, and yet his interactions with Sasuke and Sakura showed that Gigi was looking for any reason to allow them to live so that neither of them would have to know the pain that he felt of surviving a spouse who died while he was on a mission. Just as it was stated by Itachi, in the moments before death, a shinobi reveals their true nature. For Gigi, he revealed that he was someone who valued the bonds of marriage and felt shame that he'd fallen so dark into the darkness that it absolutely changed him. He wasn't able to see his path forward anymore. Unlike Sasuke, there hadn't been someone to constantly chase after him, to provide a light for Sasuke to follow back to the good side, to remind him that there was a better life waiting for him the moment that he turned to his senses and walked back on the path of the hero, and spare his wife the shame of knowing that her husband had been on the other side of the coup d'etat that she worked with Kakashi to pull off. His wife had stuck to her own values, stuck to the values that made Gigi fall in love with her, despite being in a similar situation of despair as Gigi. This mirrors Sakura, who, when confronted with Gigi's question of how far she would go if Sasuke was killed, Sakura does state that she would consider using Edo Tensei, but she knew that her friends would be there to stop her from crossing that line. In the end, she wouldn't stoop that low because she knew that Sasuke wouldn't want her to see her again, not if it meant that his wife had to take an innocent life in order to make the reunion happen. Sasuke, on the other hand, admits that he could very well be in Gigi's shoes if anything happened to his wife or if anything happened to his daughter Sarada, meaning that just as Gigi himself allowed himself to be manipulated over a false hope, Sasuke too could re-enter that very same darkness. However, the ending scene and the fashion that we got was so poetic. While Naruto isn't out of the woods yet, having the polar particle that was sealed away by the Sage of Six Paths is the first half of the cure that's needed to save Naruto. And now the married couple of Sasuke and Sakura must return to Konoha to continue their search to find Naruto's cure, taking on a mission as the original Team 7 as they take Naruto with them to find the last half of the cure that's needed to cure Naruto of his chakra illness. However, what awaits them in the final installment of the Retsuden trilogy is sure to make Naruto Uzumaki fans everywhere hold their breaths in anticipation until the final Naruto Retsuden novel reaches its end. But that's gonna be it for the Sasuke Retsuden series on this channel. On Monday, I'll have all of these videos in chronological order for you guys to check out. Just go to the playlist tab of the channel and click on the one that says Sasuke Retsuden. Right now, I've only read about about a quarter of the Naruto Retsuden novel, and I'm still waiting for more translations to be done, so I won't be covering the third novel in this series for a while. However, in 2020, after going over more of the lore that's centered around the time after Naruto Shippuden ended but before Boruto Naruto Next Generations, I'm gonna begin covering the Kakashi Retsuden novel. And I gotta say this much, I've already done a couple of videos on that novel, and I gotta tell the Kakashi fans that Kakashi has some really huge moments in this novel, and if you're a Kakashi fan, you're absolutely gonna love this novel the same way that the Sasuke and Sakura fans love this Sasuke Retsuden novel. But as always guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day guys.